This is Eitan Weinstein.
And I'm Naor Menninger, and you're listening to Two Nice Jewish Boys.
This podcast is sponsored by The Forward. Stay up to date with unlimited access to news, culture, and opinion, all through a Jewish lens. And for our listeners, for 2NJB listeners, get 6 months of The Forward for $15. Visit forward.com/partner offer and enter promo code 2NJB to get an exclusive offer for podcast listeners. Also in collaboration with Arutz Sheva, IsraelNationalNews.com. And last but not least, in collaboration with Australian Jewish News, check them out at ajn.timesofisrael.com. Last February, Gal Uchovsky said something provocative. So far, that's not really news, since Uchovsky, who's a very well-known publicist, filmmaker, and gay rights advocate, is also very well known for his eccentricity, his thought-provoking columns, and his television appearances. But this time, things got a little bit out of hand. On a Friday evening family talk show, Uchovsky said, quote, "We should declare war on the Charedis. They're like a cult," end quote. Almost immediately, Uchovsky received hundreds of phone calls and messages from random people who called him for very peculiar reasons. Thankfully, Uchovsky's life and career has made his skin thick. As a screenwriter and a producer, he's written and produced some of Israel's most famous movies, including Yossi and Jagger, Walk on Water, The Bubble, all of these directed by Eitan Fox, his partner. They also recently are releasing a movie called Sublet, which is going to be released in the United States in June. These movies have redefined the conversation about homosexuality in Israeli cinema. As a columnist, Uchovsky has written for many years in Ma'ariv newspaper, and now he's writing for the popular website Mako. And in 2020, his documentary series, The Gay Revolution, was aired and was in the center of numerous debates and opinion pieces. It's safe to say then that today's guest is an extraordinary and opinionated person. So tune in because it is bound to be super interesting. Thank you so much for joining us. If you guys are listening, you probably have some interest in Israel.
Yes.
Well, MESSA Israel Journey is perfect for you. You have to check them out. MESSA Israel Journey. MESSA Israel, you can find them at messaisrael.org/2NiceJewishBoys. It's spelled out TWO, Nice Jewish Boys.
Why should they?
They give you amazing opportunities to study and work remotely from Israel. Okay, so this is really a place to live out your dreams, your passions. You can come to Israel basically and not stop your life. Right? You can actually gain valuable experience here working. Tel Aviv's an amazing place with amazing startups. Okay, this is like the Silicon Valley, not just of the Middle East, but it's on par with...
And the hummus is so much better.
Oh, this hummus is amazing. So really, it's an amazing opportunity. I was on a MESSA program. It's a big part of the reason that I'm here today. So visit them at messaisrael.org/TWO, Nice Jewish Boys.
Do not miss this opportunity.
Yes, you really shouldn't. And we'll see you here soon. How are you?
I'm good.
So we gotta.
I don't think I'm eccentric, by the way.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think I'm. I don't consider myself eccentric in any form of.
But it's funny
life.
because we just did a round and you gave some corrections, but you didn't correct that.
No, because
so
this is like your this is your
subjective.
No, because this is subjective. It's your
Okay,
opinion. It's
okay.
not. You can say whatever you want. It's your.
How
podcast.
do you see yourself? You see yourself as non-eccentric, as reserved?
Totally non-eccentric. I mean, what's eccentric about a 63-year-old man living for 33 years with the same partner in
First
their
of all, you
apartment?
don't look 63.
Thank you, but it's a podcast.
Ding, 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 ding.
It doesn't help, because they can't see me. But
They can. You can watch on YouTube, guys. Check it out.
Okay. So no, I live a very. I wouldn't say. I find it conservative. I find a very conservative life. I have the same partner for 33 years.
We have a scoop then. Gal Uchovsky
is not
is
eccentric.
a conservative.
No, but I know when you say in America conservative, immediately you go to this kind of. But I'm not. I don't think that any part of my life is non-traditional. The The only thing that is maybe non-traditional is that when I was in my early 20s, and after I came out, I looked around at the world, and I said, okay, so I'm normal, and my life is normal, and being gay is normal. So, but not everybody thinks so. So I will live my life, and they will have to adapt. And that's the way I've been living my life since then.
Back then, it was considered, I guess, eccentric.
Well, it's very strange because when I talk to people of your generation, and I tell them that when I came to Tel Aviv, like the first day after my army, like I already had an apartment that I rented in Tel Aviv, it was not strange to be gay in Tel Aviv. There were many gay people. It was very sort of common. It was a little different. It was different than today, and the numbers were different. But it wasn't like a strange thing to be gay in Tel Aviv. It was
but
like
in culture, gays didn't exist. Really. There was Amos Gutman, but maybe a few years later.
Yeah. The representation in art was a little different, but I mean, of course now it's different. Now there's a gay parade of 200,000 people, so it's different. But the feeling of a young man at 21 coming to Tel Aviv in 1979 was not like a feeling of somebody who came like to the place where he's the only gay in the village.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Hadera. I come from a very, what we used to call a traditional Israeli, like new Israeli family then. Like my parents were born in Israel. My father was in the army. My grandparents came from Russia, Ukraine, and all these places in the 1920s.
You're full Ashkenazi?
I'm full Ashkenazi. Russian, Ukrainian, and Belarus. So it's like...
Yeah.
And Polish.
USSR.
Yes, it's like, very Eastern Europe. And so my parents grew up here, and we grew up in this country as like we own it, There were other different things that are different than today, like we didn't know about the Mizrahim, we didn't know about the Sephardic people. No,
Hadera didn't know about Mizrach?
No, they were not part of the game. They were like, I went to school, there were like 4 kids from the Yemenite neighborhood, and they were okay. My best friend, actually, the first guy I had a crush on, was from a Yemenite family, and he sat next to me in class, and I looked at the hair grow on his legs. It took years, but it was in 5th grade. The Moroccan and stuff, they were like, we met them as cleaning ladies in the houses. They were not part of the culture. You didn't understand they were not part of the thing. That's why they're so angry these days.
That's interesting, because Hadera is perceived like in Israel like a Mizrahi city.
So that's also new. Hadera was one of the Rothschild colonies. I think that's the way they're called. These little villages that he built up here in the 19th century, the late 19th century. And Hadera was like half agricultural, half like city, and it was a very nice town. What happened, and it was a small town. It was a town of 30,000 people. It was very very Ashkenazi, very like
European.
Not European. It was New Israel, upper middle class. And then in the early 90s, there's a history lesson for you. In the early 90s, when there was a huge wave of immigrants from Ethiopia and Russia, Yitzhak Shamir, who was prime minister, said that every city that takes in an inhabitant from these new aliyot gets money.
I think Sharon was the minister of...
whatever. And yes, as we say, yes, he was there too. And although I like him, and in retrospect, by the way, he was the first ever gay. No, he was the first ever prime minister in Israel to accept a gay delegation in his office.
Really?
It's one of the funniest events in
I thought you
Israeli.
were about to bring Sharon out of the
No,
closet.
no.
I was like,
But
what?
if you'll remind me in a few moments, I will tell you the story. It's a very funny story.
Okay.
But so just to make it short, so Hadera in about half a year grew up from 30,000 to 80,000 with 50,000 people who are very poor. All my family, all my parents' friends, and all this sort of milieu moved to Caesarea, sold their houses in Hadera and moved to Caesarea. But my mother, who said she doesn't like to live in a place that doesn't have like a street and a city, and that's how Hadera changed into like the town that you think of it.
So
today.
your mom is still there?
No, my mom is not there. She's like where she is.
I see.
And but the house that she left us is worth nothing. And her friends in Caesarea have houses in that are worth like 15 million shekels. So that's
Wow. And
okay.
One thing just to cross from the agenda, coming out in the 70s.
In the late 70s.
Late 70s. How was it?
Very different than the early 70s?
I don't know. Look, I did grow up as the only gay in the village. There was the word did not exist in Hadera.
But they knew like
the word gay. It didn't exist. Nobody called me fag in school because they didn't know the word fag. They didn't know the word homo. They didn't. I wouldn't go into these words, into the swear words.
You're saying it was so out of the...
Yeah, it was not... I mean,
there weren't even offensive.
No, because you see today, when you see a kid and you look at him and you say, "Oh, he's gay," nobody looked at the kid then and say, "Oh, he's gay." Nobody looked at kids or at people and said, "Oh, they are gay." It was not part of anything.
Was it because that people? I mean, were people from the gay community reserved about their homosexuality?
No.
And maybe
in Tel Aviv there were gays. When I came to Tel Aviv, when I arrived in Tel Aviv, there was a gay culture. It's not anything like today, but there was a gay culture. There were gay people. There were gay parties. Not really bars, but you gave me beer, so so I burp every now and then. But but in Hadera there was nothing.
but I'm saying
let me tell you this. My first gay images in life. So first of all, there was this newspaper in the 70s called Ha'olam Hazeh. In English, This World or something, which was like a crossover between
the Sun and...
No, it was, on one hand, it was very, very political. It was very left-wing. The Uri Avneri, the editor, he was very left-wing and very modern, and I adopted basically all his agenda. But the other half was pure gossip. And the first thing I remember was this big 2-page article about this theater actor called Yossi Graber. He's deceased now, and his friend Eric, who lived together in this beautiful house in Jaffa. And I looked at it, and I read it upside down, and I understood what's happening there. I looked at it and said, okay, so it happens. Like the two men are friends and super friends, and they live together. And this was the first time I ever came across like gay. The other thing was that you would read all these little news bits that say in the port of Marseille, in the area of like the hookers, the drug addicts, and the homosexuals. And I would see the word homosexual, and I said, okay. And then I went to see this movie called Women in Love. It's a Ken Russell movie. He was a famous director then. It's based on the D.H. Lawrence book. And it's the story of English, whatever, English royalty. But there's a scene there where the poet comes from London with his friends, and he's a guest of these people in the farm. This, I don't know the word in English, like for Atzila Kafri,
the village count.
Something like this. And they sit in the evening near the fire. It's Ellen Bates, the beautiful Ellen Bates, and the amazing Oliver Reed. They're both deceased now, I think. And then Oliver Reed says to him, "So do you like to lehavek, to wrestle?" And he says, "Yes, why not?" And they take off their clothes, and for 7 minutes they start wrestling, and then the thing goes that like into the fire, and it's like this montage, and you understand that they're naked and they're doing something. And I watched this, and I was, because I would go to the cinema like to see every movie. I just love to see every movie, and I would walk in, although I was underage, and I said, okay, I like wrestling. This I want to do.
I want to be a wrestler.
This I want to do. And by the way, if you have YouTube, if you write down "Women in Love Wrestling Scene," it comes out. It's 7 minutes. It's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, after these experiences, you're like, okay, my friends are prostitutes and drug addicts. I like wrestling.
No, but if we're moving back to today, I have this thing now that I understand that as a kid, you so much want to see yourself exist somewhere in the media or somewhere that even if it's a bad thing, for you as a kid, it says it verifies that you're there.
Representation.
You know? It's a representation. Even if it's something bad that's said about you, still you're there.
Yeah.
And then I didn't see it. I didn't think, maybe because that's in my character, but I didn't see, oh my God, they're going to hit me. I'm going to be a hooker and a drug addict in the port of Marseille. But I was, here I am. There's like people like me.
Yeah.
They exist.
But you managed to, which I think, I wonder if you think that many, kids who are growing up and not comfortable necessarily coming out and see representations like that, do you feel like there's some kind of draw to a life that's filled with, I don't know, depravities, like actual depravities?
No.
Because drug addiction, for example, we would argue is not like a good thing and they're living in the closet and they're just happy drug addicts.
I don't think that being gay means you have a tendency to be more of a drug user.
No, I'm saying that when you see representations like that, do you think it draws
first
people?
of all, to grow up in a place where being gay is very abnormal, has it toll? Of course, it has a toll. I think every gay man that I know has this little wound inside, this little thing that he carries from the people who were unkind to him, for the people who said nasty things about him, for the people who didn't promote him in work. Of course, but it's changing. We're changing the world, and the world is changing, and now there's a whole generation of stupid homosexuals, of young people who say, well, it's so easy. What do you want? Well, yeah.
So did you grow up with a feeling of guilt, like you were doing, like did you have any period where you felt like you were like sinful?
No.
I
thought it was great. I would think about boys and I would say, oh my God, that's so much fun to touch. that was my thing.
So,
when I was 13, I kind of convinced a guy from, let's say, next door that we will prepare for the girls. Like, I'll prepare him and we'll prepare each other. Okay. And it lasted until I was like 19, I think. Yeah. We would prepare every now and then. We were prepare. Well, it was so naive. You know, the thing is, I always say, we didn't even know that you can flip. We didn't even think of the other side. I don't want to be explicit.
Yeah,
It was just the two of us touching each other's genitals, but we never thought like we could flip, and we never kissed. You know, it was just the pure thing of. And you know, I didn't watch any porn ever. Like when I was young, it didn't exist. And then when it started, I didn't need it. There was never, you know, when porn was accessible, like with cassettes, I was already like 23 and I was practicing, so I didn't need to learn. So it wasn't like, you know, growing up these days, every kid, you know, has the porn in his DNA. Yeah. And I didn't have any of it. That's why I'm so good.
So we got to talk about what we mentioned in the intro. So you went on this talk show and you said this thing, and then you all of a sudden first of all, we'll get to the comment and we'll talk a bit about the Charedis community. But first, if you can just complete the story. What kind of messages did you get?
No, the story is simple. I wrote a column.
Yeah.
Explaining in a very long form, and I thought in a very persuasive way, why the way they conduct themselves in this COVID era, it makes them look like a cult, because it sharpens the fact that they do not obey to the laws of the country. They obey to the Lord of their rabbis. And there are tons of rabbis, and each one calls himself a rabbi. And you can't control a country. And this is a time to show that they're a cult. Now, since the Hasidic, especially the Charedi community in Israel, is very anti-gay, they are the people who fight us. They are the people who try to deprive us from our rights. They are the people who make sure that we cannot do surrogacy in Israel, that we cannot get married in Israel. So they are my enemies, basically. Not as people. The people I like, okay? But as a community, they are my enemies. And this was a good time to show that they are a cult, because they don't obey the laws. They don't obey the laws. The law says you have to wear a mask. No, they don't. It's not for them. They would ask a rabbi. And if he says yes, okay. And if he says no, okay. And then the rabbi decides that it's more important to have kids in schools now than at home. And they do it. So I think there was a time, and I think there was a big shock in Israel at that time. And I think they went through a big shock at this period, which will be good for them, because they'll come out a little and they open up, because the way they live in this very secluded, this very secluded communities is not good. I think it's culty. I don't like any religious. No, really, I like, I'm Jewish, I practice, I know, because my husband comes from an American family, so I know, like, to do the Kiddush of Friday, I know to do it in an American accent. Kivanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta im kol ha'anim, because I learned it at his mother's house. I didn't learn it at my...
now.
We didn't do it in Hadera at my parents' house, but we did it at his mother's house in the 90s. So that's how I do it. So I'm not against. I love the fact that I'm a Jew, but I'm more connected to the way Jews handle themselves in America, where even the modern Orthodox are people who you can deal with.
But there's no religious community here in Israel which you think.
Let's not go into this, but I think that most of the bad things that happened in the history were done by religion. Like all the wars. Look at the Catholic.
Except the Holocaust.
Except for the Holocaust.
And
they were secular, yes.
And communists.
Yeah. No, but
the big two. Big two.
no, but it's not. It's not my. It's not my
no,
field.
I think there was.
I'm not an expert on that. It's not my field.
But I do want to ask you a question about it.
What happened? You know what happened?
Well, no, before, because we went down this detour, so now I'm going to ask you about it. I mean, don't you feel like there's some part of that is almost like stooping to their level, meaning, they hate you, they hate the gays, and it's like, I'm gonna shoot back because of this extreme comets, or this extreme part of religious people that are, that hate the gays, and I'm gonna say I hate all religion, right? I don't like. I think
you should go down. You should stoop down, as you call it, to them. Yes, of course, because they are very powerful in Israel. Yeah. For the last 5-6 years, they've been in the government. They've been holding lots of monies. They've been holding a lot of important government bureaus.
But this is the Charedim.
Yes.
No, but I'm saying there's the national Zionists.
But if you're just religious, I don't care. Look. Ever since I came, Tel Aviv, by the way, that's a fact for you, is almost the only city in Israel where a gay man and his husband live in a building next door to Hasidic Jews. Mm-hmm. And in every building that I lived in Tel Aviv since for 40 years now.
Hasidic is Charedi?
Charedi. There was a Charedi family. And we got along wonderful. We got along fine. I'm a good neighbor. I'm in the Vad. We get along. So on a personal basis, it's not a problem. It's not an issue. But as a community that wants to take away your rights, then it's a community you have to fight. I'm not fighting it's not against the people.
Okay.
And when I said that we need to go on a civil war with them, I meant on a civil legal war. It didn't mean you have to go in the streets and fight.
But they can go to a legal war with you.
Yeah, they are. No. Let's correct it. They are on a legal war with me because the fact that Eitan and I cannot get married in Israel is because they are fighting me. The fact that my friends Itai and Dor are coming on Friday from Chicago with 2 new twins, and which cost them like $500,000 shekels, like $150,000, and they had to do some giur to their kids there with a rabbi, which will catch or not catch in Israel. We'll see what happens when the kids grow up. Is because these people fight me. They fight me. What do you mean? They fight me on a daily basis.
Let's talk about the marriage issue, because I never got this one. I really never got it. My brother-in-law actually lives with his partner, and you know it's funny because we're looking to actually buy an apartment right now, and I hope the government's not listening to this, but they both can buy separately apartments, right? And he can buy an apartment, and his partner can buy an apartment, and it's separate apartments. And in Israel, for people who don't know, if you buy your second apartment, you have to bring 50% down payment. You pay taxes, so it's like I'm almost upset that me and Sharon are married. I'm like, why do I have to suffer this? I feel like I'm being oppressed. So I'm just saying
you're married with a woman.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I don't understand
but
why
you had the choice.
Yeah, no, but I don't understand why it's important. Like, I get if there are certain social benefits.
But you and Sharon can stay unmarried, and then you can.
No, but it's.
But let me tell you, when I went to the bank a few years back to get a new mortgage on our apartment, they said, "But you have a live-in partner." The bank knows. By the way, the bank doesn't care. The bank said, "You have this partner. We know you. You're famous.
You guys have been living together for a while, and you're well known."
No, but in my case, they knew, but they told me. I asked them, "It's because you know who I am." They said, "No. It's a standard thing. We ask you, who do you live with? If it's a long time partner, then he has to be part of it. We don't care that like you're not married, because for the bank,
right."
Who is interested only in your money?
They're smarter
than the state. Yeah, the thing is that almost there's many companies in Israel that gives you benefits now to gay couples and to LGBT couples, and actually Israel is I had this talk that I did in America a few years ago called how has Israel become a gay heaven? And Israel is sort of a gay heaven in a way, because it's very good to be gay here. It's nice to be gay here. It's fun to be gay here, and it's a good country for LGBT people.
Specifically Tel Aviv.
No, specifically Israel.
All over.
And I think, but still, you have to fight the people who fight you. If people try to set you back, then you fight them back. And
But what don't you get, Eitan, about?
But this is going to lead us down into a whole debate. But I generally think that they should just be out of the whole issue of marriage. Meaning, I don't really care. I
didn't mean to come here and talk to you about Hasidic Jews. But anyway, if you want the end of the story,
interesting.
The end of the story was that they are very aggressive. Yes. By the way, they are a very aggressive community.
Yeah. So how does it work? Because our audience doesn't know.
Okay, so what they do, their practice is that if somebody says something unkind, these days, it's like a thing of the last couple of years, if you say something unkind of them, they have all these WhatsApp groups, and they do all these nasty things to you. In my case, they put my name and my phone in a group that said free customs for Purim. And in another group that says free eggs, two plates for a family. Call very quick. And so it was like
just troll you, essentially.
It was trolling, and so in like 24 hours I got like 2,000 phone calls, 4,000 WhatsApp messages, blah blah blah.
It's amazing they found a way to hack without knowing any code.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But if you
it basically incapacitates your phone.
And then it takes like a week till it goes down, and it's frightening at the beginning. It's really frightening. Like your phone starts jumping from the table because of this many messages. But
you basically have to turn it off. No, I mean,
you turn off the calls. You have this thing on your iPhone that you can turn incoming calls that are not registered.
Really?
of people that you don't know. So this goes immediately to.
So you might have won the lottery and not known about it.
No,
I don't do lottery.
It's pretty sad because if you think about it, those are people in need, and they take advantage of their own people, right?
Okay, so the thing is that at least half of the people who call you or send you messages know it's a trolling.
Oh, okay.
And they write nasty, and they write all these curses, But I have this thing that people who curse me, I've done it for years on Facebook, I curse them back. I wouldn't repeat the curses, but I curse back.
Speaking of the stooping to the level, you have no problem.
I curse back. Yes, of course. And I have this thing. Okay. I don't do it anymore, but in the early
you send a dick pic.
In the early always.
That would actually get them pretty good.
Yeah.
For next time.
Give me your dick pic.
Until the Charedis sends you a dick pic back.
Now it doesn't happen anymore, but when I became like a household name, like 20 years ago, when I became like the judge on Israeli Idol, like the Simon Cowell of Israel, so everybody suddenly knew my face. And then when there were groups of young people on Fridays strolling in Tel Aviv, and they would say, here's the fag. And I would always call them, who did you call fag? And I would hassle with them. I would never, nobody would call me a fag, and I would just say, oh, sorry. And I respond.
Respect.
I don't agree to take, to take these things. I don't think you should.
Yeah.
So, okay. So what, did you change your perspective somehow from all this incident, or you are firm, even now in retrospect, are you firm about your judgment?
Well, we did spend 10 minutes talking about this thing. For me, it was like a little thing that happened.
I see. Okay.
I've had I have a scandal in the media every
I see.
now and then. Okay. There was one 2 years ago when I had my photo taken. I published a photo of myself and Hanin Zouabi hugging.
She's an Israeli Arab Knesset member.
Yes, a very, very, very extreme one.
Controversial.
Very controversial. And it's a long story, but so in all the right-wing groups, they would put it and say he's a traitor. So
So I want to ask you about there has been a debate. I admit I'm not really informed about it, but whether or not, and you've been talking about it throughout your career, people who are in the closet. Can you explain to our audience about this? I think it's fascinating, and maybe people in America are less aware.
No, it's first of all, it's an issue from 15 years ago. The coming out of the closet is an issue, is a 15-year-old issue. There was a time in Israel in the history of the LGBTQ community when there was a group of very famous people, like mainly at the time they were singers, singer-songwriters. Because we didn't have lots of television then, and we didn't have lots of cinema then, and we didn't have actually the only like stars were, the only celebrities were singers, and they were in the closet and they didn't want to come out. And the thing was that in the 80s they started giving all these hints in their songs and being very explicit about it, and everybody in Israel knew. But then in the 90s, when people were coming out, they didn't want to come out. And I felt that you should put pressure on them because they're sending a very bad message to the community. And there was a big fight about it because I thought that they should come out. Eventually, they all came out, And so today, because and the time was this that I felt that there are pressures on us to stay in the closet. Like there are all these conservatives who want you to be gay, but not please mind your own business in your own bedroom, or all these ugly quotes. And I felt that you had to get to a mass of out people in order to make this community stable. And nowadays, actually, because we're such a big community, so if somebody stays in the closet, unless they're really harming the community, it's just their own problem.
But it still happens.
Yeah, there are some. There's one very, very famous one, and but it doesn't matter anymore because it's there. You know, if we have in the Knesset, we had like in the last Knesset we had 6 gay members. In this one we had 5 members
And one minister.
We had 2 ministers.
2 ministers.
So at this point, when you're like 6 out of 120 in the Knesset, you're so much represented. And if you open television in Israel, you see like every day on every screen, there's at least one LGBT person. So then, you know, if somebody's in the closet, it's really their own business. They're not harming, you know, they're not, as I used to say, if you're a famous singer and you sing your truth, yes, and you go out in interviews and you say how much truthful you are and everything is truthful. TH is hard for Israelis. And if you tell this all the time, and then you talk about everything, your heartaches, your diarrhea, your psychological torments and everything, and you just hide the fact that you're gay. And everybody knows you're gay. You're coming with your boyfriend, you're coming with your girlfriend, you know, everywhere. Everybody sees you. Sometimes even when you come to like public events, there are photos of you, but nobody writes that you're a couple. I thought this was a very bad message for a 17-year, 16-year-old kid in the suburbs. But nowadays it's not, because nowadays, if in Israel there are all these amazing teen idols like coming out. There's a new generation of kids who are amazing on TikTok and on all the apps. You can find all these kids. They are 15, 16, 17s, boys, girls, transgenders. It's amazing. So you don't need. So if this person is in the closet, it's his problem. And
so you're optimistic about the future for the gay community, for Israel in general?
I don't. These sort of questions don't bother me. Am I optimistic? I'm an optimistic person. And I think the future is going to be nice, you know. But
okay.
It's not that I don't see that there's like a problem that like somebody's like
threatening.
And also the thing is that once you're a mass and a strong mass, and people are afraid of you as a community, not as a person, then it's better because you know, like these last elections were all about the LGBT community.
I thought they were about Bibi.
Okay, no, okay. So it depends how you look at it. But for example, there's this very, very popular talk show, the most popular political talk show in Israel on Friday nights. Okay, it's called Ofira and Berkovich. It's this woman who...
It's so shameful for us that's our most popular political talk show.
No, that's a bad angle. No. So these people sit there. Wait,
you can't hear a word on that show.
Oh, you hear everything that you need to hear, and these people ask all the questions straight up, and they don't take all the bullshit political answers. And there's this woman there, and the guy is an ex-soccer player.
Yeah.
And he's very conservative, very like the guy you would have thought of as the guy who calls people faggots on field and off field, and he did it probably for years. And if on these last elections, on one of his like biggest interviews of the season, there was this guy who wanted to be Prime Minister, Gideon Saar, okay. And he says to him, okay, cut the bullshit. There are 3 questions I need to know where you stand at, so I will know if you're real or false. First question, what do you think about Bibi? Second questions, what do you think about the LGBT community and their rights? And third, what do you think about the Sabbath and opening shops in the Sabbath? And when a guy like this takes everything...
He's the consensus.
And he says, these are the 3 most important issues. Then you understand that your rights are being taken care of, at least are understood by the major consensus public.
Like, really?
Yeah.
Or is he in a bubble of the
I don't
left wing, like
no.
television producing?
First of all, he's
community.
He's right wing.
No, but he exists in a bubble.
No, he doesn't exist.
Channel 12.
No, he doesn't exist in a bubble. He was a soccer player for many years. That's nothing bubble. There's nothing bubbly about it. And the other thing is that I really believe that you can that especially in the gay straight relationship, you can change the world. It's a hard job, but it's doable. And I think we changed the views of many people. You know, my friends, they like. When they were like in their 20s, they would use the word fag as a curse. It was one of the first words they will use. Today they won't. Mm-hmm. None of the not as a you know, it's not like they're PC. Nobody in Israel is PC. They're not PC. It's a change of attitude. It's a change of
in the periphery. They would young people would still use it.
No, still homo is the most common curse in schools in Israel. Okay, but as my nephew once told me, when I looked at him playing soccer with his friends, he was like 10, and he was calling something, "You fag," and then he turned around and said, "But I don't mean it it's not about you. It's like a curse.
It's not personal."
And today he's 20, he's in the army, and he would never ever have somebody in his surroundings say the word fag in a bad way. And now you see these television shows. You know, you see that there's this new television show, teenage show called Boys and Girls, where you have like this. Never mind, these two groups: a group of boys and a group of girls. And this season, they had a boy. He was 17, and he was like the faggiest fag. And he was like like this, and very feminine. And everything you thought the boys would like. Try to not be nice to, and they were all supportive of him, and you saw that it was not like because the production told them. It's a new thing. It's developing. It's a developing thing.
Anything else before we go? Okay, Eitan has a lot to think about. But before we go, you have to tell us the story about Arik Sharon and the meeting.
Okay, so Arik Sharon was prime minister, and he was married to this wonderful woman called Lily. Lily was an interior designer, and she, of course, and they were very Tel Avivians. Arik Sharon was a very Tel Avivian person, although he lived in the farm and everything, and his image. But he was in his real life, he was friends with everybody in Tel Aviv. He used to sit in the cafes when he was younger. He was from here, and his wife had all these gay friends. And so they knew gay people. And so when he became prime minister, his wife's friends told her, "How come we think it's about time that Arik will accept a delegation of the gay community?" And he says, "Okay, I will take them." and so they were invited to his office, and it was the first time ever. It was a very big moment for the community, and 8 people went. I didn't want to go because I didn't like his politics, and I'm sorry for that ever since. But eight men went, and so when and there were like, some of them were like, at the time it was only men, of course, but one of them was an army officer, one of them was an ex-army officer, etc., etc. And then Arik Sharon came into the room, and he was a little embarrassed, and he felt a little awkward, and so he said, "Okay, so, I like your community very much. My wife likes them a lot. You have all good taste, and you all know about beautiful things." And then one of them starts saying, "No, how can you talk to us like this? This is like a stereotype. I was an officer in the army. I'm a Rav Steren, and you have to treat me." Okay. And Arik Sharon said, "Okay, no, I didn't mean it in a bad way. I meant it in a good way, that you have good taste." and he said, "No, you have to treat us as real men. We are different. We're all kinds of we're all the colors of the wind.
We have terrible taste sometimes."
Yeah. No, some of us don't have good taste, and we don't like the stereotypes anymore, and we have to fight the stereotypes. He said, okay. and so then that's how the meeting.
It's funny because you keep describing these interactions, and it reminds me of really like arguments between a husband and a wife. So often one side is just trying to say something nice or be nice, and it's because of the other side's insecurity that it comes right. It's like he wasn't trying to be offensive. He was actually just trying to say something nice, but it is a stereotype, and it can be taken as an offense.
Well,
so
I think that if you come to if you do it in a bar, then it's one thing. If you come to the prime minister's office, then he has to speak right. And if he doesn't speak right, you teach him how to speak right.
Okay.
For example, Bibi Netanyahu has never, ever in his life said an un-PC word about the LGBT community.
Right.
He is
Many vote
he's
for him, I
clean,
think.
Not that many. He's totally clean in his attitude towards the community. He hasn't done
Has he said a lot of things about the gay community?
Yeah, he was the first prime minister to send the community a tape, especially from the right, to send the community a tape in 2015 saying, vote for us. We have the best gay candidate. When Amir Ohana was running for the first time. And the thing is, the first time I saw Bibi Netanyahu in my life was when he came back from the UN. He was married to another woman. And he lived in
87, 88.
Yeah. And he lived in the north of Tel Aviv. And the coffee next door to him was a coffee called Café Benordau, which was then the only gay coffee in Tel Aviv. And he would sit there every afternoon and read his newspaper and have his coffee. And all over the place were all these gay men and sometimes drag queens, transgenders, and they would say, "Hi, you're so handsome," and he was very okay with it. And I saw him there, and I wrote to myself like a little thing: this guy is not homophobic. He wasn't even a politician. He was a young starting politician. So he's very clean in this sense.
Wow, so there's a new movie coming up.
So
Let's
there's a
plug it.
new movie coming. Let's
Sublet.
plug it.
Sublet.
It's a beautiful movie.
Feature film.
It's a feature film. Eitan wrote it with his friend Itai Segel and directed it. I produced it. It's Eitan's first movie in English. It's mostly in English. John Benjamin Hickey, the Tony-winning amazing actor, plays a New York Times travel writer who has this column where he goes to a city somewhere and he stays for 5 days and he writes his experiences about the city. It's like different than your usual tourist thing. And he comes to Tel Aviv. His backstory is that he is married to a man in New York, and they had a stillborn. They did surrogacy, and they had a stillborn, and so he comes very depressed to Tel Aviv, and he takes a sublet with this young man who becomes his tour guide. And the energy of Tel Aviv and this young man and his energy and his friends, they bring him back to life and send him back to New York, ready to go through the motions again. So it's a very optimistic movie. It's beautiful. It's a big love song to Tel Aviv. I have a Hollywood Reporter review that confirms that.
Nice.
No, it's okay. So it started. It was supposed to open last year. It had its premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival.
Then what happened?
Nothing. COVID.
Oh.
And then then we decided to let it play in festivals all over the U.S. So it played in I think by now in over 20 Jewish and gay festivals.
But what, virtually? Like
they were all like that you buy a screening and you see it in your house.
Okay.
And none of it
remote
screening. And it won almost I think 6 or 7 audience awards and some jury awards. And it's coming out in theaters in the beginning of June in the major cities in the U.S. and
Nice.
in Tel Aviv. And we're hoping everybody will go and watch it. It's the Israeli guy starring next to John Benjamin Hickey is a newcomer called Niv Nissim. He's amazing. And it's our first movie about 2 gay men where the actors are actually 2 gay men.
Okay.
Which is beautiful, which is so nicer and so easier.
You don't have to explain as much? You don't have to direct as much?
There's something about... I think that gay men play gay men mostly better than straight men. And also it enables you to be who you are very easily. It's not, most in all the movies Eitan did and all the television series he did and everything we wrote and produced, there were in each and every one of them there were gay characters, of course. and it was always like some do it easier, some take a harder time, some people, like 20 years ago would have to say something when after the cut to express their how inconvenient
Macho.
they are or something, which was very, very unpleasant to find out. So making a movie with two gay men.
But in any scene or in scenes where they had to get intimate?
No,
with
where
another
they have to
man?
get intimate. No, if they have to just say, hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Are you gay? Yeah, I'm gay too. So that's
And they're like, wow, that made me uncomfortable.
every dude can do this. But if
But
you
are
have
you
to,
saying it was uncomfortable to have to put them through that, or for them to have them say that?
Sometimes the sex scenes, which were explicit, were a little harder for them.
No pun
Okay.
intended.
Yeah.
What?
No pun intended.
No,
It was a little softer for
It
them.
was harder for them to grasp it, to go through it,
Yeah.
which I can understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sublet, I'm gonna tell people to search Sublet Eitan Fox because his name is easier to spell. So Eitan Fox, Eitan Fox.
No.
EY?
Eitan is
He spells it
EY.
like me.
Eitan spells Eytan
Fox.
Fox.
Right. And Gal Uchovsky, you can also
In America, I'm known as Gal Uchovsky, but
Uchovsky.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's how
We've been
that's
mispronouncing it this whole
that's
time.
yeah, it doesn't matter. That's how the girls in the what do you call them? The המרכזניות במלון. The
Receptionists.
Yeah.
in the hotel when I was a young air steward in the 80s in El Al. At the hotel, she would call me, Mr. Uchovsky, have a phone call.
Uchovsky.
Yeah, so that's why. But Uchovsky is okay. It's my
Okay,
name.
so Gal Uchovsky. Look it up. GALUCHOVSKY. And the movie's name is Sublet.
Yeah.
Is there a
It's coming out in
website
theaters
for
on
the
June.
movie?
There's
Or
a
Facebook page?
There's a Instagram page,
Ooh.
Sublet TLV. It's
Cool.
beautiful. It's full of beautiful photos, and
Because for screening locations and stuff, like where
yeah,
can
no,
people...
I look. I don't. We have a very good distributor in America, and I'm sure that the moment he will start working.
Okay.
He will
Stay tuned.
He will put on whatever is needed to.
Thankfully, also, I mean, the U.S. will hopefully be mostly out of this by. I mean, a large chunk of the population is going to be vaccinated by June, and
Yeah,
so they'll
and
be
the
able to go
theaters
out
will
and
be
see it.
open.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so check it out. You're on social media, Gal?
I'm on social media. Yes.
Or where can people find you?
On Instagram, I'm Uchovsky, UCHOVSKY, and on Facebook, it's mostly for Israelis.
Okay.
It's not. I don't think it carries any interest because you have to translate everything.
I
But it's
see.
interesting.
Okay. That is it. Before we go,
Yeah.
we are sponsored by The Forward. Yes. So check them out. Go to theforward.com/2njb
And guys, you get a special offer for podcast listeners. Forward.com/2njb. You get 6 months for $15. It's a huge discount. Check them out. It's a great source for news and opinion, all through a Jewish lens. Forward.com/2njb.
Also, Arutz Sheva, IsraelNationalNews.com. Check them out for English content about Israel. Highly recommended. And
Your
last but
phone
not
might
least,
get bombed
What?
again. Hopefully, your phone won't get bombed again.
yeah, because we're on
With
Arutz
the-
Sheva.
Arutz Sheva.
Sheva. No, by the way, the websites, the Charedi websites, they put on a lot of my columns. Because,
really?
Yeah, because they bring a lot of traffic.
Traffic.
Oh, cool.
So they like. I mean, they curse me, but they play with me. So
Okay.
it's okay.
So hopefully this will open some minds, this episode. IsraelNationalNews.com, right?
Yes.
Check them out. And lastly, ajn.timesofisrael.com.
Australian Jewish News.
Yes, check them out.
That is it. We accept donation, guys, so please help us out. Go to twinjb.com/donate and help us out. And that is it. God, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Good luck with
Thank
the new
Thank
movie.
You, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.